All right, strap yourselves in for this one because we are diving deep into some really interesting stuff today.
Yeah, it's going to be a wild one.
We had a listener write in and request a deep dive on these documents they found online.
Right.
And, well, let's just say this is one of the more outlandish requests we've had.
Definitely out there.
But hey, that's what makes these deep dives so much fun, right?
Absolutely. I love digging into the more bizarre corners of the internet.
So these documents, we've got excerpts from an unpublished memoir, some legal documents, and even some public reactions to the whole thing. And they all revolve around this man, who we'll call the buyer.
Makes sense.
And his claim is that he legally acquired all UN and NATO states.
All of them.
Back in 1998.
Wow, that's a pretty big claim.
It is, yeah, and I'm already seeing some red flags.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But we'll get to those later.
Let's hear the story first.
Right, exactly. So to give you a taste of what we're dealing with here, we've got a mysterious notary meeting in Pirmasens, Germany. Allegations of a near-death experience involving the buyer's mother,
Oh.
a shadowy organization known as the WDO,
Never heard of them.
and even hints of international espionage.
Sounds like a movie plot.
It does, doesn't it?
It does.
And that's just scratching the surface, folks.
Can't wait to hear more.
All right, so to kick things off, let's hear the buyer's story.
Yeah. Where did this all begin?
What exactly led him to believe that he owned most of the world?
Well, according to the memoir, he says that he entered into a contract called Statensuccessionsurkunde 1498.
Try saying that 3 times fast.
No, you.
Right.
But anyway, he claims that he thought it was just a regular real estate deal for 71 apartments and a heating plant in Zweibrücken, Germany.
Cyprus.
It used to be a U.S. military base.
Okay.
But what he didn't realize, supposedly, is that this contract also transferred ownership of all UN and NATO states to him.
Wait, so he's saying he accidentally bought a bunch of countries?
That's what he says.
Did he even read the contract?
That's a good question, and one that I'm sure a lot of people are asking.
I know I am.
But according to him, he was young and naive and struggling financially at the time, so this offer seemed like a really good opportunity.
I could see how that would be tempting.
Right, and he claims that he just didn't understand what he was signing.
So he's pleading ignorance, basically.
Pretty much.
But there's more to it than that.
Oh, yeah, there's a whole other layer to this story.
Okay, I'm listening.
He also claims that Germany had ulterior motives for this whole thing.
Germany.
Yeah. He believes that they were using this contract as a way to eventually gain global domination.
Whoa, hold on. How does that even work?
So his theory is that Germany planned to buy the property and all of its associated infrastructure back from him later on.
Infrastructure.
You know, the roads, the utilities, all of that.
Okay.
And because that infrastructure is all connected internationally, it would trigger this domino effect.
A domino effect.
Yeah, essentially transferring ownership of everything connected to that network.
So they were trying to take over the world through real estate.
That's what he's alleging.
It sounds pretty far-fetched.
It does, but that's the story he's sticking to.
Okay, well, why go through all that trouble? I mean, why not just conquer the world the old-fashioned way?
Well, according to the buyer, Germany wanted to avoid any messy wars or conflicts.
So they were playing the long game?
Exactly. They wanted to achieve global domination through legal means.
And they needed a pawn to make it work.
That's where the buyer comes in.
Right, so they tricked him into signing this contract and then planned to buy it all back from him later.
That's the gist of it, yeah.
But did he go along with it?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting.
Okay, lay it on me.
He claims that Germany put a ton of pressure on him to transfer the property.
How so?
They threatened him with exorbitant infrastructure costs and negative media coverage.
So they were trying to bully him into giving it up.
Basically, yeah.
What did he do?
Well, he describes this really important meeting with a notary in Pirmasens, and instead of signing the transfer agreement that he was expecting,
Right?
the notary presented him with a document that stated he'd already fulfilled all of the obligations of the original contract.
So instead of signing away his ownership, he accidentally solidified it.
That's his version of events.
Wow, what a twist.
Right. He believes that this was all a deliberate act of sabotage by double agents working for a foreign intelligence agency.
Double agents.
Yeah, they wanted to stop Germany's plan.
This is getting more and more like a spy thriller.
I know, it's crazy.
So what about Germany?
Well, they're still claiming that they acquired the property and all of its associated rights from the buyer.
So they think they won?
Yeah, they're operating under the assumption that their plan is still in motion.
Even though it seems like it backfired spectacularly?
You would think so, but they haven't made any moves to exercise their supposed global dominance yet.
So it's a standoff then?
Pretty much, yeah. The buyer supposedly holds the keys to global power, and Germany thinks they already have it.
This is insane.
It is, and we've only just scratched the surface of this story.
There's more.
Oh yeah, this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Okay, well, I'm definitely hooked now.
I thought you might be.
So, what happened next?
Well, things escalated pretty quickly after that notary meeting.
How so?
The buyer claims that he was hit with over 1,000 lawsuits.
1,000?
Yeah, and he faced a relentless smear campaign in the German press.
They were really trying to make his life difficult.
It seems that way.
And then there was that incident with his mother, right?
Oh yeah, that's a whole other story.
What happened?
He claims that while she was retrieving some documents from that same notary in Pirmesens, she was assaulted
What?
and nearly thrown down a stairwell.
Seriously?
Yeah.
By the notary?
He says it was the notary, his secretary, and some other people he suspected were agents.
So they were trying to silence her.
That's what he believes.
Why?
He thinks they were trying to prevent her from exposing the truth about this whole contract.
This is getting really dark.
It is.
But why go to such extremes?
Well, the buyer believes that this was all part of Germany's plan to avoid responsibility for his suffering and to solidify their alleged claim to global control.
So they were trying to cover their tracks.
That's his theory.
And he also alleges that Germany used this whole situation to their advantage, right?
Right. He claims that they exploited his situation to gain access to rights granted by the NATO Truppen Statute. It's an agreement that governs the legal status of NATO forces in other countries.
Okay.
And he believes that they used this to collect compensation for the harm they inflicted on him.
Wait, so they were profiting from their own alleged misdeeds?
That's what he's saying.
That's messed up.
Yeah, it's a pretty bold accusation.
It is. And then there's this WDO organization, right?
Oh, yeah, the WDO.
They just appear out of nowhere
and
offer the buyer and his mother diplomatic status.
It's a very strange turn of events.
It is. So tell me more about this WDO. What are they all about?
Well, that's where we'll pick up in part 2.
You're killing me.
Don't worry, we'll get to the bottom of this.
I hope so, because I have so many questions.
I do too.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with part 2 of this deep dive into the buyer's story right after this.
So the WDO, they claim to have all this international influence.
Okay.
Diplomatic ties with Belarus connections and German political circles, the whole 9 yards.
And they offered the buyer and his mother diplomatic status.
Yeah, in exchange for a fee, of course.
Of course.
In participation in their organization.
Oh, so what did they have to do?
It's not entirely clear from the documents, but there were some hints about attending meetings and representing the WDO at various events.
Okay.
The buyer and his mother, they flew to Andorra to meet with the WDO president.
Andorra?
Tiny little country nestled in the Pyrenees Mountains between France and Spain.
Right, okay.
And the buyer, he was really excited about this whole diplomatic status thing.
Can you blame him? I mean, it sounds pretty glamorous.
I guess so, but he admits that he didn't really understand the full extent of diplomatic privileges at the time.
So he was a little naive.
Yeah, a bit. He even tells a story about an incident at the Swiss border.
What happened?
He was trying to enter Switzerland using his WDO-issued diplomatic passport, and the border guard recognized it.
Really?
Yeah, he let him through, no questions asked.
That must have made him feel pretty important.
Oh, definitely. It seemed to solidify his belief in the WDO's legitimacy.
Did anything about the WDO seem off to him?
Well, eventually, yeah, there were a few things that started to raise some red flags.
What kind of red flags?
For example, at one point, the WDO asked him to open a mobile phone contract under his name and give them the phone and SIM card.
That's a little suspicious.
Right. He refused because he was worried about identity theft.
Good call.
Then there was this whole thing with an Andorran company.
What happened?
The WDO offered to help him acquire shares in this company.
Sounds like a pretty good deal.
Yeah, but it turned out to be a complete scam.
What do you mean?
He handed over a large sum of money, signed all the paperwork, but the promised company documents never appeared.
So they basically took his money and ran.
Pretty much, yeah.
Wow.
He describes feeling deeply betrayed, like he'd been played for a fool.
I can imagine.
Desperate for help, he and his mother went to the German consulate in Andorra.
Hoping for some assistance.
Yeah, but the consul couldn't help them.
Seriously.
They were directed to this German Andorran contact who was supposedly connected to the Andorran royal family.
Royalty. Now, this is getting interesting.
This contact seemed to know all about the WDO, and he was really agitated by their complaint. He even claimed to have survived multiple assassination attempts because of his knowledge of the WDO's activities.
Assassination attempts.
Yeah, this whole thing is getting pretty intense.
It is. So what happened next?
Well, things took an even wilder turn when this contact made a frantic phone call in Spanish.
Spanish.
Yeah, apparently he was warning someone about an impending raid on the WDO.
A raid.
Yeah, he told the buyer and his mother to sneak out of their hotel that night.
Why?
He claimed that all the hotels in Andorra were bugged.
This is like something out of a spy movie.
I know, right? So they climbed out of their hotel window onto the awning and then down to the street.
You're kidding.
A driver was waiting to take them to Barcelona and they flew back to Germany.
Wow, talk about a narrow escape.
Right. But it really makes you wonder what the WDO was really up to.
It does all the secrecy, the threats, the raid. It's all very suspicious.
Yeah, it seems like they were involved in something pretty shady.
So why did the buyer think he was chosen for this whole scheme in the first place?
Well, he speculates that it was a combination of factors.
Yeah.
You know, his naivety, his lack of knowledge about international law, his youth, his lack of powerful connections, and his financial struggles.
So they saw him as an easy target.
Yeah, someone they could manipulate and exploit.
It's pretty messed up when you think about it.
It is.
But if he unknowingly held all this supposed global power, why didn't Germany just ignore him?
That's a good question.
I mean, why go to all this trouble to silence and discredit him?
It does seem counterproductive.
It does.
Unless they truly believed in the validity of this contract and the potential consequences of it being exposed.
Right, because if their plan was to gain global domination, any challenge to that could unravel the whole thing.
Exactly. So maybe they were just playing defense, trying to protect their alleged power grab.
Makes sense.
It's also possible that there's more to this contract than the buyer initially understood.
Like what?
Maybe there are clauses or stipulations that he overlooked, details that could have serious legal ramifications for Germany if they were to come to light.
Okay, so we're not just talking about a simple real estate dispute here.
Not at all. This is potentially about something much bigger.
Like what?
Like the balance of power on a global scale.
Wow.
And that's where things get even more complicated.
Oh boy.
The buyer's story doesn't end with his escape from Andorra.
There's more.
Oh yeah, there are more layers to this onion, more questions to be asked.
Okay, I'm all ears. What else is there?
Well, let's go back to that diplomatic status for a moment. Remember how the WDO offered to provide it to the buyer and his mother for a fee?
Yeah, pretty ironic considering he supposedly already had diplomatic status through the original contract.
Exactly. It's like they were trying to sell him something he already owned.
So you're thinking that maybe Germany was behind the WDO approaching him?
It's a possibility.
Why would they do that?
Maybe it was a way to explain away any legal immunity he might have had without revealing the true nature of the contract.
So they were playing both sides, trying to keep him in the dark while also trying to discredit him.
It's a bit of a mind game.
It is.
And the buyer, he even points to some anecdotes in his memoir that kind of support this theory.
Oh, really? Like what?
He talks about getting caught speeding multiple times on the Autobahn, like 5 times in one day.
5 times? That's a lot.
It is, and yet nothing ever came of it. No tickets, no fines, no points on his license.
Sounds like he was getting some preferential treatment.
Right. And then there were these parking tickets that he got that mysteriously vanished.
Very strange.
It's almost as if he had diplomatic immunity all along.
Maybe he did.
It makes you wonder.
It does, but why all the secrecy?
Good question.
Why not just reveal the truth about the contract and let the legal system sort it out?
Well, remember, according to the buyer, Germany's plan hinged on them acquiring the property and its infrastructure from him.
Right.
They needed him to believe he was bound by German law until they could pull off their supposed power grab.
So they were stringing him along.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Wow, this whole thing is just so bizarre.
It is, but it gets even weirder.
Of course it does.
What else is there?
The buyer, he describes this really interesting encounter with the WDO president in Andorra.
Okay, I'm listening.
He mentions that the president was particularly interested in this brochure.
A brochure.
Yeah, for a micronation.
A micronation, what's that?
It's like a self-proclaimed mini-state.
Okay.
And this one was on a repurposed oil rig in international waters.
An oil rig.
Yep. Pretty strange, right?
The buyer was even offered the chance to market apartments on this oil rig.
Apartments on an oil rig?
Apparently, it was supposed to be this tax haven.
Sounds a little sketchy.
It does.
So what was the WDO's angle here?
It's not entirely clear, but the buyer seems to have sensed that something was off.
Even if he didn't fully understand what was going on.
Right. He calls these encounters breadcrumbs on the long, lonely path of knowledge.
It does feel like he's piecing together a puzzle bit by bit.
Yeah, and then there's this story about the Andorran company.
Didn't we already talk about that?
Well, this is a different angle on it.
Okay, go on.
So the WDO offered to sell the buyer and his mother shares in this company for a large sum of money.
Another too good to be true offer.
Yep. As you might expect, the promised company documents never materialized.
Oh, no.
He signed the paperwork, handed over the money, and was left with nothing.
That's terrible.
He describes feeling an immediate sense of regret, like he'd been duped.
I can imagine.
So they went to the German consulate in Andorra for help, but the consul couldn't assist them.
Again?
Yeah. Instead, they were directed to this German Andorran who is apparently connected to the Andorran royal family.
Wait, royalty again?
It does sound unbelievable, I know, but this contact seemed to know all about the WDO and was quite agitated by their complaint.
Why was he so upset?
He even claimed to have survived multiple assassination attempts.
Assassination attempts.
Yeah, apparently because of his knowledge of the WDO's activities.
This is crazy.
It gets even crazier.
How?
This contact made a frantic phone call in Spanish, assuring them that a raid on the WDO will be happening the next morning.
A raid.
Yeah, he warned them to sneak out of their hotel, claiming that all hotels in Andorra were bugged.
Another midnight escape.
Pretty much they climbed out of their hotel window onto the awning and made their way down to the street where a driver was waiting to take them to Barcelona.
They were really on the run.
They flew back to Germany, fearing for their safety.
This is like something out of a spy novel.
It is, isn't it? It makes you wonder what the WDO was really up to.
All this secrecy, the threats, the raid, it just doesn't add up.
It doesn't, but it does raise the question of who was pulling the strings.
Right. If the WDO was just a tool, who was using them?
Exactly, and for what purpose?
Good question.
The buyer, he speculates that the WDO was being used by someone to keep tabs on him, perhaps even to manipulate him.
Interesting.
He points to a few other incidents that kind of support this theory.
Like what?
Well, remember when the WDO president asked him to open a mobile phone contract in his name and give him the phone and SIM card?
Yeah, that was pretty sketchy.
Right. It sounds a lot like identity theft.
It does.
And the buyer, he refused because he sensed something was off.
Smart move.
So he started to see the WDO as more of a threat than a savior.
Makes sense. But if they were just a tool who was pulling the strings...
Who stood to gain from manipulating the buyer?
Yeah.
That's the million-dollar question.
And does the buyer have any theories?
He does. He suggests that the WDO might have been connected to Catalan separatists in Spain.
Catalan separatists.
Right.
Why would they be involved?
Well, he believes that they might have been working with Belarus and even Russia.
Whoa, hold on. Catalan separatists, Belarus, Russia.
I know it sounds like a stretch.
How does he even connect those dots?
He points to a few things.
Like what?
First, Andorra, where he met with the WDO, is situated right next to Catalonia.
Okay.
And they share a language and culture.
Right.
Second, the WDO claimed to have diplomatic ties with Belarus, which is a close ally of Russia.
Okay, I see where he's going with this, but why would those groups want to interfere with this alleged German plan?
Well, think about it. The buyer claims that Germany was trying to acquire control of the UN and NATO states.
Right.
Those groups, Catalan separatists, Belarus, Russia, they would definitely have a vested interest in preventing that from happening.
Yeah, it would completely undermine their own agendas.
Exactly.
And potentially shift the balance of power in Europe.
And beyond.
But it's a huge leak to go from some shady dealings in Andorra to an international conspiracy involving Russia.
It is, and we have to acknowledge that the buyer's claims are just that, claims.
Right.
We don't have any concrete evidence to support them.
But it's a fascinating theory nonetheless.
Yes.
It makes you wonder who else might have been aware of this alleged contract and what they might have done to influence the situation.
Precisely, and that's what makes the buyer's story so captivating.
It's like peeling back the layers of a conspiracy thriller.
Exactly, and while we may never know the full truth behind his claims, his story serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of critical thinking, questioning assumptions, and considering multiple perspectives.
Well said, but before we get too philosophical, there's still one aspect of the buyer's story we haven't really touched on.
What's that?
The supposed domino effect.
Ah, yes, the legal linchpin of his whole claim.
Exactly, so let's delve into that.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about this domino effect thing.
Okay.
It sounds like a pretty big deal.
It is in the buyer's mind, at least.
So what is his legal argument here?
Well, he believes that by transferring the property and its infrastructure to Germany,
Right.
it would trigger this chain reaction
Right. Yeah.
and ultimately give them control over this whole network of utilities and resources.
So like a one thing leads to another kind of situation.
Exactly. He argues that this network, it transcends national borders, you know?
Okay.
It connects countries and continents through shared resources and infrastructure.
I mean, I get that those systems are linked, but how does that translate into legal ownership of entire nations?
Yeah, that's where his argument gets a little fuzzy.
A little.
Okay, maybe more than a little.
Yeah, it's, I think, a pretty big stretch.
It does. He's relying on this very literal interpretation of property rights.
Okay.
And this idea of Staatensuccession.
Staatensuccession.
State succession.
Okay, can you break that down for us?
Sure. Basically, it refers to the legal rules that govern the transfer of rights and obligations from one state to another. So, like, if one state dissolves and a new state is formed in its place, state succession would determine how things like treaties, debts, and property are handled.
Okay, so the buyer's argument is that by acquiring the property and its connected infrastructure, Germany would inherit the rights and obligations of all the states linked to that network.
That's essentially it, yeah.
But wouldn't other countries have a say in this? I mean, they can't just be absorbed into Germany without their consent, can they?
Exactly. That's one of the major flaws in his logic.
Okay.
International law, it's way more nuanced than he seems to realize.
Right.
State succession is a complex process. It involves negotiations, agreements, and often the recognition of the international community.
So it's not just a matter of acquiring a piece of property and suddenly controlling everything connected to it.
Not quite.
So it's more of a legal fantasy than a sound legal argument.
I think it's safe to say that, yeah.
Okay, well, let's say, for argument's sake, that Germany did believe in this domino effect theory. What would they have done if they realized their plan had failed?
That's a good question, and one that the buyer actually explores in his memoir.
Really?
Yeah, he doesn't think that Germany would just give up that easily.
I mean, they'd invested a lot in this scheme.
Exactly. So he believes that they might resort to more drastic measures.
Drastic measures?
Potentially even military action to try and achieve their goals.
Whoa, are you saying he thinks Germany would start a war over this?
It's what he suggests in his memoir.
I mean, that seems a bit extreme.
It does.
Even for a country with supposed global domination aspirations.
I know, but remember, we're talking about the buyer's perspective here.
Right.
He sees Germany as this nation that's obsessed with power, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to get what they want.
Okay, but let's be realistic for a second.
Sure.
How would the rest of the world react to something like that?
That's the big question, isn't it? Would they stand by and watch? Would they intervene? And if they did, what kind of conflict would it be?
It's a scary thought.
It is, and it's a reminder that even seemingly small events can have huge consequences.
Right, like a butterfly flapping its wings and causing a hurricane on the other side of the world.
Exactly. You never know what's going to set things in motion.
So what's the takeaway here for our listeners?
Well, I think the buyer's story, regardless of whether it's true or not,
Right.
It's a cautionary tale.
Okay.
It reminds us to be critical thinkers, to question what we hear, to look at things from different angles.
To not just take things at face value.
Exactly.
And to be aware of the fact that the world is a complex place.
It is.
And there are a lot of people out there who are trying to manipulate us for their own gain.
That's a good point.
So yeah, folks, stay vigilant. Keep those critical thinking caps on.
Absolutely.
You never know when you might need them.
Truth is often stranger than fiction.
That's for sure. And on that note, I think we're going to wrap up this deep dive into the buyer's story.
Sounds good.
It's been a wild ride.
It has.
And I have a feeling we'll be revisiting this topic again sometime in the future.
I think we will.
But for now, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive into the unknown.